Protests against the pipeline expansion have been going on for years, and Indigenous communities are almost always at the forefront.
We are here because we are so deeply concerned about our future generations. We are so deeply concerned about the land and the waters. But rest assured, there will never, ever be a Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline project.
The new pipeline crosses hundreds of kilometers of unceded Indigenous land. That is, lands that were never signed away through treaties. Many Indigenous people in British Columbia see the project as an infringement on their land rights and title.
Water here, I played in the water, I swam in the water, I canoed in the water, I ate out of the water. That helped me to grow and have a connection that my ancestors have, to have a connection to where my ancestors come from.
That's where we're marching, and that's who we recognize ourselves as. We are Stomach, we are people of this land. Our ancestors, our Chomok lived here.
This land doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to any of us. It doesn't belong to any of you. We belong to this land.
And historically and briefly, what has the relationship of the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation been to the British Crown? And in particular, has any of the territory been ceded to the Crown?
No, never. We've never given up our stewardship, never given up our responsibility as caretakers of the inlet and the land surrounding it. Tsleil-Waututh means people of the inlet. We have stories of our first grandmother being born from the inlet, and that really ties us to the water. It really ties us to the land, and having that bond and that knowledge is hardwired with all Tsleil-Waututh people. And we had a saying, when the tide went out, the table is set, meaning we got about over 90% of our diet from the inlet.
That this land was given to us by our ancestors, and it is our responsibility as elected leaders to protect that land for our children and their children and their children. To that end, the Squamish Nation has taken both the provincial government and the federal government to court over the flawed, deeply flawed consultation process. We have rights as a nation which have not been met or honored by this government. The Trudeau government ran on promises of changing the relationship with First Nations, and he has completely failed at that regard.
The Government of Canada has approved the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Expansion Project. We have made this decision because we are convinced it is safe for BC and it is the right one for Canada. It is a major win for Canadian workers, for Canadian families, and for the Canadian economy now and into the future.
The money. I got money.
The environment and the economy need to go together. Responsible resource development can go hand in hand with strong environmental protection.
The money. I got money.
So what I actually point out to people is we're taking a very different approach from the approach the previous government took.
Let's make lots of money.
We're saying flat out that we know that even the folks waving the Build Kinder Morgan signs, they want that pipeline to get built, but they don't want to see our environment fall into catastrophe. They want to see a good future for their kids too. There is no choice between what's good for the environment and what's good for the economy. They have to go together. And if we have a criticism of the previous government's approach on the economy, it's that they didn't do well enough on the environment to allow them to move forward as they should have on the economy. So we're taking an approach that both protects our oceans with a historic oceans protection plan, yes, brings in a price on carbon pollution, and gets the pipeline built. They all go together, and there are premiers to the east of us immediately who don't like the price on carbon, and there are premiers to the west of us that aren't crazy about the pipeline, but I say to all of them, this goes together. We are going to protect our environment, and we're going to grow our economy in ways that help the entire country. That is the entire story we're putting forward, and it's what we're working on. Everything we do is in service of that, and that is why I can say with confidence, because I know, and I've heard from Canadians, that they don't want there to be a false choice between environment and economy. I know we are going to get those things done together.